Hello! So today we thought we would do our personal top 10 list of games that we think are essential to your collection. So we have done our list separately and we've actually not let each other see them at all. No. I've kept mine very secret in my big book. And Trev's kept his secret on a bit of paper. So we don't know. So we don't know what each other. And we've done this so we can see how we go with what we've said. I think I've got ideas of what Trev's going to come out with, and you've probably got ideas.
Yeah, a few maybe.
I'm going to say.
It might just be worth saying that there's a couple of maybe caveats. In terms of, obviously, this is completely subjective. So, you know, you might just completely disagree with what we say, or you might completely agree. It's up to you. Hopefully, it'll just give you some ideas of what you think, or give you some ideas of what could eventually join your collection, maybe. But how did you do your list? Like, how did you order it? Did you do it as in like someone who's just getting into gaming, or...
So also what Trev said about subjective, we're going to disagree with each other, I think. But I did my list not necessarily on a new gamer. I did it on a list that I think should be in your collection. Should be should be in someone's collection. So I did it. I wasn't necessarily thinking of a new gamer. I didn't go down that route. I just thought of the games, 10 games that I think collections should have in them. What about you?
A little bit of both. I did games that I went through like a bunch of different mechanics in games and tried to kind of pick a game from each of like the main sort of mechanics in games, and then I ordered them from 10 to 1 from what I think is probably going to be the easiest to play to number 1, which is what is probably the most complex. So I didn't do it from someone who's just necessarily getting into gaming per se, but if you are looking to get some new games and you are new into the hobby, maybe look at the higher numbers rather than the lower numbers. But saying that, not all of them are overly complicated to play anyway. So with a little bit of practice, you know, you should be able to play everything that's on my list.
I agree with that, actually, with my list as well.
Okay.
I think, but I've done it differently to you. So for me, it's just 10 games that I think should be in a collection.
And they're probably going to be wrong. So
Trev's will be wrong, so you're fine.
So let's do it.
So my number 10, and this was a tricky one because I tossed up a few of these games, and it's falling in line actually with what Trev said, that not every game, I haven't chosen games for beginners necessarily. So some of my games are, if you looked at them, they'd be a little bit more higher on the complexity. But as Trev said, with a little bit of practice, they're not that complex to play. Once you've got used to how they work, they all flow very nicely. So my top 10, and you might be surprised by this, is Euphoria. The dice game. Yeah. And the reason, I was really going between a few Stone Meyer games of what I think, because I really, really love them. There's a lot of them I really enjoy playing. But for me, I really like the mechanics in Euphoria. I think it's a really different theme as well. Like, I really like that theme of, post-apocalyptic almost, where you're getting your workers to do things, and it's a lot of dice, and I love dice games, and I really like how you're using your dice to assign to certain spaces, to get your resources to then get certain things.
It's definitely got that interesting thing going on where when you roll your dice, which are your workers for the game, that if they go too high, they're too smart, so then you have to get rid of them, because it's about you're kind of playing as like an oppressive government, and you're trying to keep your workers kind of dumb, really, aren't you?
Yeah, that is essentially, it actually says that in the
It sounds
rules.
awful, but it's a great...
It does actually say that.
It's a good game.
I'm sure it says that somewhere in the book, basically keep them at a low level.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite a complex game.
Yeah, it probably is one of my most complex on my list, but I think it belongs in a collection. I know the reason why is because it's so different. It is different. It's different to other games. It's got a very different theme. It's different. The way
it's definitely
it plays. Cool. I also really like the board has one coloured side and one black and white side. And I think...
It's not a different board though, is it? It's just the same board on either side, yeah.
But I just think if you had... It plays really well as two and it scales up really well. So you could have it in your collection just to play with someone, just the two of you or however many. Also, has it got a solo variant as well, I think?
I don't know.
I have to double check that. We'll pop that in the comments, actually. I'll make a note. Most Stone My games do.
Yeah, this is one of the older ones from Stone My, though, isn't it?
I feel like it does. I will double check.
Anyway, my number 10 is my first entry for kind of like party games, essentially. So this is a party game that I put on there.
Oh, okay. I don't know what it's going to be.
It's got a little bit of bluffing.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to guess in my head what it is.
It is Sheriff of Nottingham. So.
Oh, I didn't expect that at all.
Well, the reason that I chose this is because, firstly, it's super, super easy to learn. People who want that kind of social interaction of trying to bluff each other or bribe each other. So for those of you who don't know, Sheriff of Nottingham is a game where you play as traders and every round one person plays as the sheriff. You've got like a little envelope that you put goods in. It might be cheese or bread or something like that. But then you've also got things like contraband, which are like crossbows and
silk
and wine and different things like that. And what you're doing is you're trying to convince the sheriff to allow you to keep your things that you've put into your envelope.
Yeah.
However, most of the time people are going to be lying, so you might want to try and bribe the whoever's the sheriff to allow it to pass through so you can keep it. However, the sheriff can choose to not take any bribes and open the envelope,
which is brilliant.
Yeah. So if the sheriff opens the envelope and there is contraband in there, you have to pay the sheriff.
Yeah.
However, there's this really interesting thing going on that you can try and convince the sheriff that you do have contraband in there, very, very subtly. But what you do actually have in there is legitimate goods, which means that the sheriff actually has to pay you. And I really like that dynamic of trying to outthink each other, and it gets that kind of meta game of what does that person
I also
normally
love watching people play it.
Yeah, and anyway, and that's my party game.
That's a good shout.
Number 10.
That's actually a really good shout. Haven't put that in there. That's a good shout. Darn it, I agree. Number 9. Okay. So this one for me, I love this game. I really do. It is Adrenaline.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
It's probably actually one of the earlier games that we started playing.
Yeah, Philip Naduck, I think, isn't it? Duke?
It's Czech Games Edition.
Yeah,
that's
Edition.
it. Yeah. It's minimum 3 player, and there really is a reason for that. So it's basically and me and Trev, not only do we really like board games, but we personally play a lot of PlayStation games. We play a lot of computer games together, and apart. And I really like Adrenaline because it is a first-person shooter game on a board game. And the way it's been simulated is brilliant, isn't it? And you each have to pick up your weapons. So you spawn in spaces and then you have to obtain weapons, load them, make sure you've got enough ammo, get to where you want to get, and then you shoot each other. But the brilliant thing about Adrenaline is the more damage you take, the better you become. And it's got a really good mechanic where it has in it that you don't get a runaway leader. So if one of you starts getting really targeted, it actually is not worth the other players shooting them because they have like less point values when they die. Because whenever you have more damage tokens on an opponent, if you've got the majority damage tokens, then you take the most points for it. But the more that they have been killed, the less valuable they become.
Yeah, it's kind of seen as like a first-person shooter of the board. Yeah, it was pretty high on my list. The reason I didn't put it on there though is because I didn't want too many games with a higher minimum player count.
Yeah, yeah.
So Sheriff of Nottingham is the only one I think
Don't tell me.
that only plays 3 player. All the other ones can be played at 2. So on my list.
To be fair, that when we were building our collection at the very beginning, that was something that we really took into account because it was only ever the 2 of us really playing, and we always took into account. I remember when we first got Adrenaline, I remember being a little bit like, oh, it's only 3 player. But it was fine because we had plenty of people that we could play with. And you just can't play that game 2 player. It just wouldn't work. And the other thing I love about that game is the amount of variance.
I mean, I guess you could have like 2 characters each. Maybe would be.
Yeah, you could do it like that, but it wouldn't have the same effect.
No,
it
won't have that dynamic of.
No, it's really good.
You won't shoot your own people, I guess, either. So it'd just be.
And it's another one. And it's another one I love watching people play.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So my number 9 is a racing game.
Okay. I think I know what it's going to be.
The reason I chose this one, I mean, I really enjoy racing games, but the reason I chose this one is because I think it has a little bit more replayability than the other racing games that I've played. And the reason for that is that you can put it together and race after race like a Tour de France. So that game is Flamme Rouge. So Flamme Rouge is a racing game where you own a team of cyclists, and you're basically trying to win a race in like a cycling race, really.
Yeah.
So you have 2 cyclists. One of them's a sprinter. The other one's like called the roulier. So what you're doing is you are playing cards to each cyclist, and whatever you flip over with that card you picked, you move that cyclist that far.
Yeah.
The sprinter can either go really slow or really fast, and the roulier is more like your marathon runner.
Yeah.
Kind of the cycling world, I guess.
I know nothing about Trev knows about that.
Not really. So I pretend to do. So yeah, and the interesting thing about it is that you have this like a really cool mechanic where you are slipstreaming. So if you're only one space behind another cyclist, you get to move up behind them for free. So you end up going a little bit faster than the card you play.
Yeah.
But what also is really cool is that if you're at the front, you're taking the brunt of the wind. So you have to take exhaustion cards into your deck, which means that you can, they're cards that allow you to only move a couple of spaces, which are really slow. And the only way to get rid of them is to actually play those cards, which means that you end up dropping away. And the cool way that you can play it in almost like a campaign mode is that you keep the exhaustion from race to race. So you can try and sprint and win loads of races early on, but then you have loads of exhaustion for future races. And I really like that. It's got some really cool expansions as well, like the Peloton expansion and
the different maps.
And obviously you can make the different maps with the hills and the downward slopes as well. So yeah, my number 9.
Thematically, that one is brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just thinking about that.
Yeah, it's great.
So that's our number 9.
Number 9.
So number 8.
Number 8.
Okay. This one, I had to toss up between a few for these. But I chose this one because it's got a good player count. It's got a bit of a higher player count than the one I was toing and froing between. It's great for beginners and it's great for experienced gamers. It's a really good game and it is Century Spice Road.
Oh, good. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's got nice amount of mechanics to it that are just... If you've got someone over that isn't a very experienced gamer or isn't really into the hobby as yet, Century Spice Road is a great one to get out and teach them. Doesn't take long to teach. And the theming of it works really well, so it flows really nicely and it plays 2 to 5. So it plays it to 5, which is nice.
Yeah, it's a nice engine building game. I mean, going on the theme, I don't think there's any theme.
There is. You're trading spices.
Yeah, but you're trading cubes. I mean, they've proved that in the Gollum edition, haven't they? Like,
you know. But whenever I teach, I always name the spices.
Oh, I think of them as like burgers. So you've got like your burger, which are the brown cubes. the green, which is the lettuce, the red, which is the ketchup, and the yellow, which is the mustard.
I stick to the spices.
But yeah, no, I agree. It's a good game. It's really easy to get. I mean, you've only got to basically remember how the 3 different types of cards work, and on your turn, you're essentially either playing a card from your hand, which is doing the ability on the card, or you're buying a card from the row, or you're resting, which is where you pick up all the cards you've already played, or you're buying one of the points cards with the spices that you accrue, and it's a really easy game to pick up. I'm glad you've actually chosen that because I was thinking you were probably going to go for maybe Splendor.
Yeah, and the reason why I didn't was
the player count.
Yeah, it was the player count, and also I feel that Century Spice Road is a little bit quicker.
Yeah,
it's a faster, for me anyway. When I've played it with people, I tend to play it faster than I do Splendor. So I feel that it's a really nice length for the game that it is.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
Good pick. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, really? Unbelievable, this agreement that
apart from you saying that it has theme.
Well, I like the theme.
My number 8 is a tile laying game where you're laying tiles onto the table. I've also kind of grouped it in with like a city building aspect as well, and that game is Carcassonne.
Yes.
So Carcassonne is an amazing game which is super easy to learn, and it's the one game that when you introduce to people, they say, "Oh, where's the board?" And it's like, "Well, we're gonna build it.
It's on its way."
And I love that. It kind of, when people play Carcassonne for the first time, it kind of it's pretty mind blowing that you start off with like this one tile or with a river in the middle of the table, and all you're doing is you are laying a tile, and it has to match up to any of the tiles. So you need to have roads touching roads, or cities touching, like city walls touching city walls. So basically the main rule is that it has to make sense.
Yeah, it has to match, doesn't it?
And then once you've laid that tile, you can essentially place a meeple onto that particular, onto an aspect of that tile, whether it be a road. And then when that particular thing is finished, you score points on that particular thing. So when the road is finished, you'll score 1 point for every road, or when the city is finished, or a town, you'll earn 2 points for every town. You have these little abbeys as well, which you're trying to surround. And the gardens, if you're playing with the abbots mini expansion, which tends to comes as standard now. Really, in Carcassonne.
There's a lot of decision making in it, because you've only got a limited amount of meeples that you put out, and it's so tempting to say, right, I'm going to put mine there, I'm going to put mine there, and before you know it, because you do not get your meeple back until you score the element that you've put it on.
Yeah.
So if you put it on a road and that road just keeps going, you're not getting it back. So then you can't put it anywhere else to score.
And it's really interesting in that fact that you can try and build things in such a way that the other players won't get those meeples back, or you can complete it really quickly so they get a smaller amount of points.
Yeah.
And it's just a really nice little solid game that...
Again, it plays well at 2.
Yeah, it does. It plays well at all player counts.
And I've seen it be played at the higher player counts, and it's really fun, because you get much more competitive over the cities, because whoever has the majority meeples gets the main amount of points.
So that is my number 8, Carcassonne.
Cool. Number 7 is... Okay, so number 7 for me, it's a new game that we've recently been playing. I love the theme, and the theme is so different to what is out there at the moment, and the theme may put a lot of people off. It really might. I think it probably does from what I've heard, but if the theme puts you off...
You've got me confused.
Get through it, because the game is so good. Pret-a-Porter.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's fantastic. So we played it for the first time a couple of days ago, and it's not actually left the table. Well, it has, because we've had to clear it. But the game is so good. And the reason why I really like the theme is because the theme works so well with the game, because you are playing as opposing fashion houses to basically create the best collections to put forward on the fashion show. And you have 4 fashion shows in the game. The game is played over a year, and you have to obtain materials, which means you have to buy them. I've got quite stuffed in the game a few times and had to take out bank loans. And the way the bank loans work with the interest rates, it's such a good business simulation game.
You've got to also employ your staff.
Yeah, and you have to upkeep them. So every round you have to pay to maintain your fashion house of the staff that you've brought in, or the outsourcing you've done for marketing or PR.
Yeah, like the contracts and the buildings as well, and everything you've got to pay for. So even though you get more powerful, if you do it too quickly, you end up running out of money. And I've got to be honest, it's probably one of the best business simulation games I've played. It is incredible. However, too complex to go on my list.
I see what you say, because it is, the complexity of it is up there. But I'm quite skewed of complexity, because my personal opinion is, once you've learnt the mechanics and you play the game, I think the first few run throughs, and maybe if you're new to gaming, the first few would be quite tricky to get your head around it. But once you've got your head around it,
it does flow well for one of those more complex games. But I think if I was to have someone come to the table who had only ever played Uno or Monopoly, I think this would probably put them off the hobby. But then we're not doing our top 10.
We're doing essential
beginner
games.
We're not doing our top 10
we're doing
introductory games. We're doing essential games.
And this is why I think if you're going to have a business simulation game, which you should, because they're great, in your collection, for me, it would be Press Porter.
Yeah, absolutely amazing game.
Yeah, it really is.
Cool. So what number are we on? 7. Okay, so my number 7 is a deck building game. And I've also kind of put it into travel as well. So it's a game that you can take around with you. And it's probably my most played game of all time. I've played probably over 900 games.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
And that is Star Rounds.
Yeah.
So Star Rounds is a really cool sci-fi deck building game where you start off with a small deck of 10 cards, which you are going to be playing, and they're either going to give you money or attack points, and you're essentially trying to reduce each other to 0 health.
And those starting 10 cards.
They're awful. So what you're doing is you're playing out these cards to attack each other, but also buy more cards from a trade row that's in the middle of the table.
Yeah.
And they end up getting added into your deck, which makes it more and more powerful. But what I really like about this as well is that you've got these 4 different factions in the deck, which play completely differently.
Yeah.
And not only do you have to try and build the best deck, but you've got to build a deck that synergizes to a certain extent
and works against your opponent.
Yeah, and I absolutely love it. It's again pretty easy to pick up. I mean, Dominion was on my list for the deck builder as well.
Yeah.
But for me,
I think the travel aspect of Star Rounds.
Yeah, for me, Star Rounds just gets played so much more.
It used to be, we had it in our bags. Well, my bag, and we used to take it wherever we went. We'd just have that game.
Yeah,
and if we were waiting for food in a restaurant, we'd just have a game of Star Rounds. It was just. I think that's probably our as well most played game together. But they've now got so since we've been playing it so much, since when we got it years ago, they've now come out with Star Rounds Frontiers where you can actually play with 4. And we've played it as a 4, and it's really good.
Well, you can play with 4 players anyway. You just need 2.
Yes, you need the 2 decks.
2 sets.
Yeah.
And there's loads out there. There's loads of expansions as well,
so much.
which really switch it up.
Yeah, I agree with that choice. Definitely.
Star Rounds.
Oh, did I not?
My number 7.
Darn it. Okay.
Number 6.
Number 6 for me is our first crossover.
Is it?
Yeah, Carcassonne.
Yeah, of course.
And the reason why I just wanted to add to what we said about Carcassonne is I have had so many laughs playing Carcassonne.
Yeah.
Like, just the best nights playing Carcassonne. And I don't know why, I've just really enjoyed that game.
I think it's one of those games that you know, pretty much anybody can pick up and
it's just
and
great.
play. It's so
It really should be in everyone's
like
collection.
you're not waiting ages for your turn. Like the turns happen
Yeah.
really quickly. The scoring's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And it's just so satisfying when you see, you know, you start off with like the one tile, and you just end up with a table with this, and it's different every single time as well, which is what I love. And it's really satisfying when you finish to go, oh look what we built. And
I love as well that sometimes you're so set on your own strategy and what you're doing, is sometimes you just don't see what other people are doing. And then when you do, you're like, what? And I think, I don't know, it's just great. It does belong in everyone's collection. It's brilliant.
I can, well, it's on my list. So I
Crossover.
agree. My number 6 is abstract. This is my entry for abstract games. And this game is set in Portugal.
Okay, I know what it is.
Where you are building a mosaic, or it could be window. There's 3 different types. And that game is Azul.
Yeah.
So this won the Spiele de Jahres, I think was it 2018? I believe.
It was a while back now.
And Azul is just an absolutely fantastic abstract game which plays really well at every single player count.
It's also addictive.
And it's really addictive. So, I mean, there are 3. So you've got the original Azul, you have Summer Pavilion, which is just there. And then you also have the Stained Glass of Sintra. To be honest, you could pick any 3. They are all absolutely fantastic. And they all play slightly different. I'm picking the original Azul because it's the original.
Is that why you did that?
Yeah, but I mean, it could be any of them. So the really cool thing about this is that you're building a you're building a mosaic on your player board, and each round is essentially split into 2 halves. So the first half you're going to be taking in turns to take tiles from the middle of the tables, which are on what are called these factory tiles, which are like these circles in the middle of the table, and you take turns to take them from one of the circles. But whatever you take, you have to take all of that colour from that location and then put them onto your player board. But you can't immediately put them onto your player board in the mosaic. You have to fill up rows of the same colour to be able to move it over into your player board. And the interesting thing is with this is that you can force people to take more. Well, you don't even have to be forced. If you go wrong, this can happen as well. But
it's very strategic.
Yeah, and you can, if you take too many tiles that you can't fit onto your board for whatever reason, they then become minus points. And I really like that because you have to think ahead of what am I going to take this round? What's going to go into the middle of the table? Which people can also take from, because whatever you don't pick goes into the middle, into like a middle pool, which people can take from. And you can just play it. For me,
it's really logical as well, isn't it?
It just never gets old.
And anybody can play it.
Yeah, it's really easy. I think the scoring can be a little bit tricky to teach, but once you get your head around it, it's pretty easy.
That goes for all of them.
But if you play games such as like Quirkle or something like that, the scoring's very similar.
Actually, the scoring is very similar with the
to Quirkle. So I just love Azul. All 3 of them. Doesn't matter which one.
I know.
My number 6.
Okay. So number 5. My number 5 is my abstract game of choice, Quirkle. So
cool.
I nearly picked Azul. I very, very nearly did. But the reason why I didn't is because I have chosen quite a few complex games for my list. And I thought, okay, if you've got a collection that's really essential, you need a good balance, don't you, between complex and not complex.
Yeah, because if you have people come over and you decide to play a game, you're not going to take out Pret-a-Porter for example, because it's too complex.
It's depending on the friends or family you have as well, because some of my friends and my mum is they're not board gamers. It's quite hard to get my mum to sit and play a board game, but I think I haven't actually put it to her yet, because I only played Quirkle not recently, my first time, and I loved it. And I actually said to my mum the other day, I think you'd enjoy it. I really do. And I think even my non now
it's Dominoes meets Scrabble
Yeah.
without the letters on Scrabble.
Yeah, and it's not. And also, you're saying about Azul how the scoring is similar. Quirkle's a great entry to Azul.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt.
So it's a really
Maybe we
good
should have done
one.
the top 20 and just staggered them.
So what's yours then?
I mean, just going back onto the Quirkle thing, I think it's great. So in the game, you're basically you've got a group of 6 tiles in front of you. There are 6 different colours and 6 different shapes. And all you're doing on your turn is playing onto a row or a column, kind of like Scrabble with the words in Scrabble.
Yeah.
But they either have to be all the same colour but different shapes,
Yeah.
or all the same shape but different colours.
Yeah.
And you earn points for adding on to that row. So even if you add 1 tile onto it, if it's already got 4 on there, you'll earn points for the whole row. And then if you manage to complete a second set of 6, you get a Quirkle, which is an extra 6 points. And it very, very nearly made the list for me as well.
It's another one that, you build as you play.
Yeah.
So when you finish, you can look at it and be like, oh, look how it looks.
Yeah, it looks really nice on the table. It's got really nice wooden pieces as well, so it's something you can play outside.
Yeah.
Good pick.
Cool. What's yours then?
Okay, so my number 5 is to do with dice. So my dice rolling pick. So this is the reason I love this game is, one, it's space themed and I love things in space.
Got it.
But also the other reason I picked this is because you are always involved even when it's not your turn. And that game is Space Base. I nearly said Star Realms again. That game is Space Base.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
So Space Base for me, if you like games like Settlers of Catan, where you're rolling dice and whatever you have a number on, whatever you've bet a number on, you get a reward. Well, Space Base is very similar to that, but way, way better, in my opinion. Yeah, it's easily.
Yeah, I know.
Easily.
I know, yeah.
So,
I'm just adding the dramatic effect.
Yeah, so with Space Base, what you're doing is you roll a couple of dice, and depending on what numbers you have like a board in front of you with spaces, your space base numbered 1 to 12, and they all have different spaceships in.
Yeah.
And each spaceship will give you a different reward, whether that be money, victory points, or income, which is basically where you start your money from at the start of your next turn if you don't buy anything. And depending on how you can either add the dice together to get a higher number, which usually the better rewards, or you can take each die individually and trigger each spaceship that's in front of you. And then once you've done that, you can then spend that money to buy more spaceships.
Yeah.
Which the interesting thing about this game is when you buy that spaceship, it tells you what space in your player board it needs to go into. And what you'll do is you'll take the existing spaceship out, put the new one in, turn it upside down and tuck it under your board. So on every card there is a upside down reward on it as well. And what that basically means is if another player on their turn rolls that number, you get the reward from what that spaceship is.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool that you are constantly involved. And I love how you can either buy spaceships and spread across the whole board.
Yeah. Or you can work on a certain area.
Which is usually tends to be what I do, where you just basically have a big line of spaceships on one number, hoping that someone rolls it, and then you get a big windfall of.
See, and I always do the other strategy. I always try and work over.
I mean, let's be honest. You tend to win. So, but I most of the time. But I just absolutely adore this game. Unfortunately, at the time of us filming this, I think it's out of print at the minute. But it'll come back in print, 100%. And it's such a great game. And as I said, if you've played things like Settlers of Catan, I would jump on this straight away, and because it is a massive improvement.
That what you said about it always being your turn.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure we've all had games where it takes ages to get to your turn, and sometimes you can, if you're not strategizing for the next go, sometimes you can lose your, you can get distracted, can't you, sometimes? And I think with games like Space Base, another one is Dice Forge, where you've got those games where you're constantly engaged, every single turn. Yeah, Dice Forge is very good.
Unfortunately, it didn't make my list, but
To be honest, I'm annoyed because I didn't even think about them for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 4.
Number 4.
Dun, dun, dun,
Getting
dun.
into the meaty end.
This is I feel that I may have chosen games that are slightly too complex, but they're not too complex because this is an essential.
But this is your essential top
Yeah.
10. This,
and it's
something for everyone.
my number 4 is another space themed game, which is weird because I didn't think I liked space themed games, but I really do, and it is Terraforming Mars.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, even though it is more complex, yeah.
How many times have we played Terraforming
Yeah,
Mars?
we've played it a lot.
And we've played it in 2, 3, 4. We've played it. That's probably our most played heavy strategic game, to be fair. We played it. Do you remember once in the summer we played it in the garden? We played it twice through, and just back to back. And those games, they were taking like a good couple of hours to play because we do take our time.
Wow.
Okay, I take my time, but it pays off. I might add. That game, I think the reasons why I've chosen it is because there are a lot of space themed games out there, and they are really good. But for me, I don't know, there's something about Terraforming Mars that whenever it comes out on the table, there's just something about playing a corporation, building up your corporation to be profitable, or depending on what goal your corporation is, you could be like an eco warrior, but you are making Mars habitable. So you're building up Mars. And you're laying oceans, you're laying cities, you're laying forests, and you have to raise the temperature of Mars. You have to raise the oxygen level.
And 9 oceans. You have
the oceans, the water. And you also get awards for, I don't know, being the person who built the most cities. There's so many different awards you can get as well.
Highest money income.
That's it. So the strategies, there's just so many.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of cards in that game.
With just the base game as well. And this is why another reason why I said about for the essential is we've had that game for years.
Well, since I don't know what year I can't remember what year it came out.
I remember years ago I got it for your birthday, didn't I?
Yeah.
But it was, and it's one that for me, we have never felt to buy an expansion for. I mean, the expansions sound great and they add so much to it. And I think there's one that I really like the sound of where it just takes, it just gets it going a bit quicker. There's a few.
Prelude.
Yeah, there's a few expansions that I really like the sound of, but as yet, I still haven't felt the need to purchase one because I really enjoy the base.
There is a lot
how
of.
many cards?
Yeah, it's a lot of cards there. Yeah, so it's a really cool engine building game where you are trying to kind of organize your income and your mining, your plant life.
Yeah, I mean we don't talk
heat.
when we play it though.
No,
we tend not to talk. It's very much.
Yeah.
But I love a game like that. That's probably.
It's really good. To be honest, it is a great pick because it's got so much replayability in that game.
Yeah, 100%.
That it's not on my list, but it's a good shout.
Good pick.
Okay, so my number 4 is my cooperative game. So this is a game where you are working together to play as scientists and researchers and medics.
You're right, though. I know what you're going to say.
To save the world, and that game is Pandemic.
Yes.
Pandemic is an absolutely fantastic game from Matt Leacock. Came out in 2008.
I know.
It's getting old.
So popular. But it's good.
Yeah, it's amazing. What you're doing is there have been 4 diseases that have outbroke around the world, and you work together to stop them from spreading too much, but also trying to find the cures. So what you're trying to do is collect a set of coloured cards of the same colour. So for example, like 5 yellow cards to then find the cure for that particular disease. But while you're doing that, you've got a map which has cubes representing the diseases spreading. and you are constantly running around trying to stop them from spreading. Because what happens is if too many cubes get put on a location, what happens is you get an outbreak, which then spread, and that can then make a chain reaction to spread even more and even more.
It's really exciting to play.
Yeah, it's got so much tension in that game.
Yeah.
I also love that really simple concept of when you draw this card called an epidemic card, you when you're adding cubes, what you do is you turn over a deck of cards to tell you what to add the cubes to. But when you draw an epidemic card, what you do is then you take all the discard pile, you shuffle them and put them back on top of the deck,
which is called intensify.
And I just love that. It's so simple, but it adds
it's so evil.
It just adds so much tension to the game, and it's like, oh, okay, we've now got to revisit where we've gone, just to try and stop that from getting out of hand.
Yeah.
And I just love the game. I think it is one of the best co-op game. Well, arguably one of the best co-op games out there. Again, it's really easy to learn to an extent. Definitely, one that should be on everybody's shelf.
It should,
in my opinion. And that is my number 4, Pandemic.
So number 3. I know what it is. Okay, my number 3 is probably one of my most least complex games I've chosen. It's nice and small. Anyone can play it. It plays really well, young and old. And it's King Domino.
Oh yeah, that's good.
It's
more of a family option.
It's really nice. It's really colourful. You're in the game. You're choosing tiles to create a scene. And basically you're scoring points for the size of the terrain that you build, but the only way you can score in that terrain is to ensure you have crowns in the terrain, and the crowns become the multiplier for the scoring. And it's not long. You can play the game in about 20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah.
It's very quick setup. Again, the setup is part of playing the game, so you almost set the game up as you play, because you're building your own board. So you build your own section in King Domino. I've seen loads of people play it. I've played it many a time. It's just nice.
It is great, and also it's really easy to teach people.
Yeah.
Because obviously the clues in the name is based off dominoes.
Yeah.
So if anybody's played dominoes before, which I'm assuming most people have, then it's really easy to learn. It's really pretty.
It's so pretty and colourful. It's lovely.
Good option for a family game.
Nailed it.
Nice. So, my number 3 is a story game. Slightly more complex than the other ones that I've mentioned previously. And the reason I've chose this one is because it's non-legacy. So I was thinking about what story games have the most amount of replayability.
Okay.
If you're going to keep it in your collection.
That's actually a really good way of thinking about it.
Yeah. So this game can be played in numerous different ways. You can play as a single character and go through their story. You can play through the game story. You can play in like an arcade mode.
I know where we're going.
And that game is Ryan Lockett's Near and Far.
Yeah.
So this game is absolutely fantastic. So what you're doing in this game is you are a traveller and you are going out around the world to set up camps and do quests, collect resources, build artifacts, and recruit new adventurers to join you. Fight monsters and bandits.
Yeah.
And what I love about this game is that it's going back to the non-legacy thing. So it's got so much replayability in there that I think there's like 8 characters that you can play, and you can play through each story of those characters.
Yeah.
And then you've got an arching story for the actual game as well.
And you've got that really cool map.
Yeah, so the each board is played in like a ring binder.
Yeah, it's like
book.
a big storybook.
So you essentially choose a page and then just
I love it.
do it. And I think this is great. The writing is really nice. I mean, it's not it's not the deepest of stories, I think.
No, but it's got that
it's got
perfect fantasy feel.
Yeah, it's got so much soul behind it, and it's got a lot of heart, and
It's a
I
feel
really
good
like
game.
it. Yeah,
It's a feel good game.
It's fantastic, and the what you're doing is you're moving around.
You know your tents.
Yeah, you're building your tents to. When you build a tent, you collect resources, and then you can spend those resources.
It's such a good game.
Yeah, near and far. My number 3.
I think we'll have to play that now. Get out and play it again. Okay, so number 2. Number 2.
Nearly there.
Okay, my number 2 is our second crossover, I think, and it's Pandemic. It's brilliant. Trev said everything you said when you mentioned it in your list. It's just, that game should be in everyone's collection. There's nothing else to say. It plays really well. Actually, the board as well is great looking. I really am a sucker myself for good artwork and everything about that. I really like a game that looks and feels good, and Pandemic is that.
Yeah, I mean, the board is quite stark, isn't it?
But that's the point.
It's not the kind of game that has like lavish artwork, but it works for what it is.
That's the point. It works really well for what it is. It's just, and I love that you start in Atlanta with your little research station.
Yeah, the CDC.
It's just great.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say on that, really, is there? There's just...
It's great. That's it.
Yeah. So my number 2 is a worker placement game. The reason I chose this one is just because it flows so well.
I know what you're going to say. I think.
So you are an architect who is trying to build in a place called the West Kingdom. And that is Architects of the West Kingdom.
When you said worker placement, I thought you were going to say Lords of Waterdeep.
Lords of Waterdeep, yeah. That was originally on my list.
Right. Why did you change it?
Because I feel like if I was to only have 10 games in my collection...
That'd be only 10?
Yeah. I feel like Lords of Waterdeep, although it's an amazing game, and it's a fantastic game for an introductory to worker placement, I just feel like Architects for me has the legs in terms of replayability and longevity on my shelf. And also another thing that I really like about Architects is there's never an end of a round.
Yeah, that is actually a good element of that game.
In Architects of the West Kingdom, you are building buildings or working on a cathedral to earn points. And the way you build them is by placing your workers. So you've got a bunch of workers, I think it's like 20 workers that you use to place onto the board to collect resources. But the cool thing about it is that every time, let's just say I was trying to collect stone, for example. When I place my first worker there, I get 1 stone. Yeah. Then when I place my second one there, I get 2 stone. And then when I place the third one there, I get 3 stones. So it's accumulative. Excuse me. And I just love that aspect of, you can, the more you put there, the more you can get. So it kind of snowballs. But yeah, you're losing your workers. And the only way to get them back is to either capture them yourself, or if you want to be mean, you can capture other people's workers and kind of hold them hostage on your board, and then get paid for putting them into a prison. Yeah, they get to prison. Which is how the other players can then get them back, or if they don't want to wait for me to put them into the prison, they can pay a lot of money to just take them back directly off my board. But the thing is, if they do that, then if I'm the one capturing those workers, I won't then get paid for that. Yeah. Because I eventually want to put them into the prison. And I just think it's an absolutely fantastic game with amazing artwork. I mean, I really enjoy all of Shem Phillips games. Anyway, Raiders of the North Sea was up there for me. Oh, see, I love Raiders of the North Sea. For a worker placement game. Yeah. But just Architects, just because of the pure smoothness of the game and how quick the turns go. I can't believe I didn't put one of those on my list. Oh, well, that's why your list is wrong, isn't it?
if only we had a top 20.
Yeah, it was hard making this list. I've got to be honest.
It was really hard, actually.
But yeah, for me, my worker placement game for my number 2 is Architects of the West Kingdom.
So we're on our final
number 1
first choice.
Woo-hoo.
Can you guess what mine is?
I have an idea.
Yeah.
Hello. You're our number 1.
Yeah, Lucky's our number 1. And Pippin. They're both joined number 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So Lucky, put your tail down, darling. So my number 1 is... It is Above and Below.
Thought it might be.
If anybody who knows me knows I love this game. And... thank you, Ryan Lockett. Thank you, Red Raven, for introducing Above and Below to my... Well, they didn't introduce it to me, but because they made it, I have Above and Below in my life. I don't know what it is about that game. For me, it was one of our most earliest games that we got. It got me really into the hobby, actually. And I think when a game takes you into the hobby, I think that it becomes maybe a bit special to you because you've... I love playing board games. I've had so much fun with it. My life is practically revolved around it. And I think the game that takes you into that is special. I think a lot of people will feel that way. A lot of gamers, their first game they'll always know and remember, and it'll be special.
Yeah, it's a game with a lot of soul, isn't it?
Yeah, and the game itself is great. It's got a lot of replayability. It's got a brilliant storybook. It's got a sense of adventure. So if you are thinking about, maybe I might like to play something like an RPG adventure game, then start with Above and Below. Get used to that storytelling element.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a choose your own adventure. It's got a choose your own adventure element to it.
It's got a real nostalgic feel to it, I think, because of that. It's like those old books. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Oh, I want to do this. Okay, well, this happens. And the stories are great. The stories are great. Funny.
However, it's not an overarching story, though. So it's kind of like you go down. So what you're doing is you're recruiting villagers to join you and building buildings, but you can also go adventuring down into the caves. And when you go adventuring into the caves, the other player will read a story out to you, and
but you can also you can meet characters down in the cave.
Yeah.
And you can take them back with you to your village. Yeah. And you can injure your party down in the cave and they have to go to hospital.
I'm kind of worried that you're excited that you said you can injure your...
Look, it gets you the points, man. No, and another thing I love about that game is the element of resource collection, because essentially the resources you collect, you place them on an advancement track at the bottom of your player board, and the more you get, the more points you're going to score at the end of the game. So it is a lot about resource collection, but the way you collect resources is totally up to you. You can go adventuring and try and be risky to get as many resources as you can, but the more risky you are, you might make the more negative choices that would then make your villagers talk bad about you to the village, which means you're going to get minus reputation points, and reputation points score you points.
Not.
Yeah, or not.
In your case.
Yeah, or you can farm. You can build buildings that you can then harvest and farm from. It's just so much to the game.
It's a really solid game. And you know what I really like about it as well is that with the resources, not only do they earn you points at the end of the game, they also determine your money income during the game, and different resources have different rarities, so you've got to make that decision of when do I start putting these resources onto my board so I can start making money, but it probably means that you're going to be putting the more common ones at the start, and the more resources you have in a stack on that particular space, the more points you earn for each of that particular resource. So ideally what you want to try and do is put the rarest stuff earlier on in the board, but then that will then affect your income because you're holding out to... And I really like that kind of decision you have to make of, am I going to go and try and maximise my points by the end of the game, or am I going to try and get loads of money, which money is really tight in the game as well.
It is. And also money doesn't also buy you buildings, it buys you new villagers.
Doesn't buy you love either.
No, don't buy you any love. You have to have the money to buy the villagers, and some of the
buildings.
Yeah, some of the characters that you meet in the caves. And I still haven't obtained all the characters in the game. Like there's still characters that I'm like, am I gonna get? I still don't think I've had Tin Man.
I mean, we've played that game a lot, and I don't think we haven't seen all the stories.
No way.
Have we? I mean, we've got an expansion for it as well. And we haven't even
touched
that expansion storybook yet.
There's something about Above and Below for me when I put it out on the table. It just gives me this really lovely feeling.
I mean, it's the artwork as well, though, isn't it? Like the artwork is amazing.
The world that Red Raven have created on their games, because they're all in that same universe, same world. Near and Far as well. In fact, Near and Far is essentially, I think it's a spiritual sequel.
Yeah, it's the spiritual successor, isn't it?
Yeah.
To Above and Below. In fact, the town of Above and Below is in the first map of...
Yeah.
Not to give any... It's not a spoiler.
It's not a spoiler.
Above and Below is in the first map of Near and Far.
It's love. It's just the linking of the game. Like, Near and Far is very high on my list. But as I said, it had to be Above and Below for me.
Cool. So, my number 1. So this... is a drafting game and also an area control game as well. And it's one of my top games ever.
Why don't I know this? Why can't I think what you're going to say? Give me...
Viking themed.
Oh, what is wrong with me? Why can't I think? Okay, give me more clues. Just a few more clues.
There's a tree in the middle. And monsters and miniatures, and that game is Blood Rage.
Of course.
So Blood Rage is a really cool. I just absolutely love it.
Do you love it because you have never lost to me?
No, I love it because it's a great game.
I have never won this game again. I've never won it. I love it, but I've never won it.
It does help that I tend to do okay.
You've got strategy down to it too.
Yeah, so in this game, what you're doing is you play it as a Viking clan to try and take over different parts of the board, and it's got miniatures and it's got really nice miniatures. It's produced by Cool Mini or Not, and
the minis are great.
Designed by Eric M. Lang. And what you're doing is you all start off with pretty much exactly the same clan, but as you progress through the game, and this is what I love, is that you end up with a completely unique clan with your own set of powers that you use throughout the game. So, and the way you add those is you draft cards. So you'll have a hand of cards, you'll choose one to keep and then pass it to the rest, and all these cards do different things, whether they help you in combat or they are quests you can go on, or there might be monsters you can summon.
Yeah, the monster summoning is pretty cool.
Yeah, I just think this game has so much depth to it. I mean, it's not the simplest game to learn, but I think in terms of how the depth versus how hard it is to learn.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad to learn.
It's not too bad.
Once you've got it, it flows well.
Yeah, and so what you're doing is on your turn, you're spending rage points. So you have a certain amount of rage points to spend. And then what you spend them on, you can either move your troops around, or you can invade different areas. You can give yourself upgrades to your different parts of your clan, and different things like that. And then what you're trying to do is pillage different areas of the board. And if you're successful, you can then allow yourself to have more rage at the start of the next round, or it allows you to have more people, like more minis out on the map, or it gives you more points when you win a battle. But the great thing about this game is that you can earn points for even losing battles as well. So
because if you die.
You can add traits which allow you to get points for losing battles. Yeah. And I just really like how there are so many different routes in terms of strategy you can take to.
I just haven't nailed it yet with the routes of strategy. For me, haven't worked yet, but I really enjoy playing the game. I think I'm not surprised that's your number 1 actually.
Yeah.
When you were saying a tree in the middle, I was thinking, what? I'm forever down. I thought that wouldn't be your number 1.
That's in the end though. That's not in the middle. That's a tree.
Yeah, no, you're right. But then I remember the big tree in the middle of the. It's not an actual 3D tree. It's a tree on the board, and our imagination is there.
in the middle of the board. Yeah. And yeah, I just love the game so much. I think it came out in like 2015,
Yeah, it was a little bit
2016,
early
so
one,
it's getting on a little bit, and it still holds up. I mean,
Our copy is quite worn now.
yeah, it's very worn out. I mean, you've got Rising Sun, but I think Rising Sun for me, although a great game, it's a little bit convoluted in terms of how it plays.
Sun, for me, looks prettier.
Yeah,
for
there
me
is that.
personally. And I remember when Trev first bought Blood Rage home, I remember thinking, I'm not a fan of combat games at all. It's something it's just not my cup of tea normally.
And now we have the third in the trilogy, Ankh, as well, which is like based in like ancient Egypt, where you play as ancient Egyptian gods. But I don't know too much about that right now, but I'm very excited for that to come out. I'm really excited to play that. Whether it'll top Blood Rage for me is a different story. But
on Ankh, it looks.
It's
for me, it's a lot more attractive than the artwork on Blood Rage, but I should never have let
the minis look great.
No, but I should never have let the artwork nearly put me off Blood Rage because the game is so
judge
good.
a book by its cover.
Well, yeah, but you do.
Well, yeah, you do. I mean, the thing is, it's not just playing a game, is it? You've got to. It's the whole package of, is this aesthetically pleasing for me to play while I'm playing?
It's the components as well.
Yeah, like the tactile
and that makes
and
difference.
The minis are gorgeous, aren't
they? Yeah, the
they?
minis are good. Some of the monster minis are really cool.
Yeah, and so that is my number one essential game, Blood Rage.
Well, there you go.
And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed our top 10 essential games. Let us know whether you agree with our picks or whether you think there's anything that we missed out that should be in there. But
I definitely missed Raiders on my list.
Raiders of the North Sea.
Should have put Raiders of the North Sea on my list.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have taken out to put it in there.
I mean, if I would have liked a top 20 or top 30 essential games, because I could have easily
Let's do a top 100. We can do it.
Yeah.
This is why this is why we all go crazy and have so many games in our collections, because you can't stop.
But yeah. So if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. If you feel like we've missed anything, or if they think there's anything on our list, or if you completely disagree with what's on our list, just let us know.
I like to know.
And that's pretty much from us.
Cool.
So thank you very much.
See you.